awesome. How's everybody doing? It's Wednesday. Does anybody have anything that they need to throw in the trash that's tempting them? That's what Julie and I were just talking about. We also learned that Julie does not like Reese's, so I don't know if we can be friends anymore.
Julie, that is disrespectful.
I liked it until I threw up off of it. I just never have eaten it again.
Until she had she had to eat Reese's to survive as a child.
No.
Something else caused the throw up. You are associating it to the wrong thing. There's no way.
I ate way too many that night that we got lost trick-or-treating. So I missed dinner. So I went to my room, got all the Reese's peanut butter cups because they were my favorite one. And I ate every single one of them, which was a lot. And just, I was so
like
sick.
A good night.
Ugh, yuck. Ugh. Yeah.
Did anybody else trick or treat with pillowcases?
Oh, yes.
Did you guys? Okay. I would fill a pillowcase full of candy. And now as a parent, I'm like, what the hell? I let Emmett pick 30 pieces and it's enough to fill a small drawer. And that's it. We got rid of the rest of it. And I'm like, even that though, he had a ton and it only filled a Walmart sack. So I'm imagining back to my childhood when I filled a pillowcase full of candy that was so heavy I had to carry it over my shoulder like a little hobo child. And I ate a lot of that candy. And so I'm just like, oh my God, just those memories come flooding back. But did everybody do good? Did you pick out your things that you wanted and have your treats and get rid of the stuff, all the temptations?
I did. It was all Reese's. But I decided none of the little mini Reese's. It had to be full Reese's or a bat Reese's. And I had to be done with it by yesterday. Mm-hmm. So
I like that. Is anybody else doing the reset? Christy and I are doing the reset. Marlene, are you doing reset too?
No, I'm not. Mm-mm.
I couldn't remember.
Me neither.
I had to do one. I was just feeling it wasn't I was super off track. It was just a lot of little things that had snuck in. And I was like, you know what? It's time for a reset. Let's just dial it back in, refocus, and just seemed like the perfect time because then these next couple of weeks we're going to be leading up to Thanksgiving and all that kind of stuff. And so next week I want to give you guys homework because you guys come every week. And so this week's homework for next week, think about your absolute favorite Thanksgiving treats and meals, sides, things that you have to have at Thanksgiving. And then I want you to think about something we can add to Thanksgiving dinner that's maybe a healthier option or a healthier version of something, but not to take away from the things that are our favorites. And maybe we don't even need a healthier option now that I'm thinking about that. Maybe we do just talk about our favorite things and a strategy around the holidays. Have your breakfast, have your, hit your water, hit your movement, and then enjoy your normal Thanksgiving dinner and then, all that kind of stuff. So I want to think about Thanksgiving next week. But in an exciting way, not in a restrictive way at all. This week, I want to talk about carbs. And I think a lot of times, just that word for me sometimes feels like a trigger word because of diet culture and things that I've grown, we've kind of been brainwashed into thinking about carbs. And so I wanted to talk about carbs a little bit, about why they're important, but also what our favorite ones are, because I know that I find myself getting kind of stuck in a rut with carbs. And so I'm curious what you guys are doing for your healthy carbs. Yeah. So carbs are actually our body's first like line of energy. Like that is the fastest burning macronutrient, and our body goes for those first when we need energy. And so carbs are super important for our bodies. We're so used to being on low carb or no carb, or carbs are the enemy, nothing white, never have anything white. And it's just not true. And it's important to note that like some people don't tolerate carbs as well. Some people don't tolerate white carbs. Some people, they have like blood sugar spikes from them, but that's not like an everybody rule. That's just like you have to tune into your body and listen to your own body. And as an individual, why is that important? And pay attention to how things make you feel. Some people tolerate gluten, some people don't tolerate gluten. Some people, can have whole wheat bread. Some people can't have any bread at all. Some people can have pasta and some people can't. Like it's really just tuning into yourself, but as a whole, as a rule, overall, no matter which source your carbs come from, carbs are important for your body. And so it's really just like dialing into avoiding carbs that might be a bugaboo for your individual body, but that's like anything. Like some people just have sensitivities to other things. It just so happens that carbs have a lot of different categories, and within carbs, they can, because of different reactions that some people have, they can be problematic, but they're not problematic as a rule. And so I wanted to mention that because I've had some people in the past tell me like you should never have anything white, and you should never have white potatoes, and you should never have this, and you should never have that. And like it makes my blood sugar spike out of control. And that's true for some people. And something that I talked to that specific person about was like, okay, then you as an individual, maybe you avoid those things, or maybe you eat them in smaller quantities and not demonize them, because the problem with demonizing them is we will often overeat them when we avoid them so strictly, instead of eating them in the right portion long term. We like binge eat them because somebody told us we can't have them, and so now like that's all we want. And so unless you intend to avoid things like that 100% all the time for the rest of your life, which isn't really possible, let's find what place they hold in our life and let's put them there where they belong. And so anyway, that's my little spiel about carbs. For me, I get kind of stuck in like my roasted potato recipe, baked sweet potatoes, and rice. Like I like basmati rice and jasmine rice. I like the more fragrant rices, but really any rice, except for brown rice. I don't really like brown rice. I know that I think it's got more nutrients in it than white rice, but I don't like the husk that it's in. It has like a weird texture to me. Um, but those are really like, even though I know other carbs exist, those are my main ones that I prep almost every single week. Maybe I don't make my roasted potatoes every week, but I definitely do rice and sweet potatoes every single week. I have sweet potatoes with my breakfast. I love to have just containers of rice in my fridge that I can heat up and throw in with whatever. And I keep it super plain because then I can just season it as I go, however I want it seasoned. This is going to sound a little bit weird, but one of my absolute favorite ways to eat rice right now is with a little bit of Kerrygold butter and some of that powdered ranch seasoning, like mixed together. Oh my God, it's so good. And that's really good on vegetables too. Just FYI, a little bit of Kerrygold butter and then ranch seasoning, the powder ranch seasoning. It's so good. And that's like a weird go-to for me right now. I like it plain too, but that is delicious. So I'm curious what carbs are you eating? Maybe on a regular basis, maybe not on a regular basis. What are some favorite ways that you've prepared them? And let's share it. Like somebody mentioned to me, and I don't know how to cook this, so I'd have to ask, I think it was Lisa. Lisa or Nikki, and they made quinoa with like coconut milk and pineapple or something like that. That sounded really good to me. But yeah, what do you guys make for your carbs?
I think I have that recipe, Lauren, that was shared. It's like coconut or pineapple quinoa. I think I have that
You do? If
somewhere
you can
on my.
find it, send it
I
to
think
me.
so.
Or post it
I
in the
will.
group.
I would love to see if I have it. Yeah. They shared it one time and I saved it. I just didn't go back to it. So I'll double check.
Cool.
I actually like one of my go-to carbs is diced potatoes. Like I buy frozen just because of for convenience, but I try to make sure that it's not frozen vegetable or frozen potatoes that have like oil already in them, things like that. Walmart's tried to trick me a couple times with that. And so I always double check the ingredients, trying to avoid like the vegetable oil ones and things like that. So I try to make sure it's like just potatoes or potatoes and onions and or something like that. But I do that a lot. And I've been adding nutritional yeast to mine for like a cheesy flavor or whatever. And it's really good for you. So I've been doing that a lot lately.
How do you cook them? Do you put them in the air fryer?
Actually, I haven't tried the air fryer. I just saute them in a pan with a little bit of oil, olive oil or avocado oil, and I just get them like I like a little bit of char on a couple of them, and that's pretty much all I do. But I do want to try them in the air fryer. Just haven't thought of it. So I also will
I like crispy potatoes.
Yeah, I will also roast like a whole pan, kind of like the ones like you do. I use parsley instead of rosemary, but um I do the same method or whatever. I've done that for years, but I'll roast a whole bunch of them and then save some for like my breakfast ones or whatever. And then I'll reheat them in the saucepan and I'll do the same thing. I'll add like a little bit of nutritional yeast or something like that. And I find like if I use the nutritional yeast, especially if I'm making like a potato, like I would normally have like cheese and butter and all that on there to cut back on the fat, the nutritional yeast kind of, for me, replaces the need for cheese. So that's another thing. So, but that's what I've been doing. And I love Sandy B's rice. I just haven't made it in a while. But it's on the to-do list in the next week or so.
Oh yeah. I forgot about Sandy B's rice. You should make that and put it in the Facebook group so that people know how to do it.
I'm going to try to do
delicious.
I'm going to do that, and I'm trying to get a little bit better with apps and things like that for like social media and sharing. So I'm gonna try to see if I can do like a little video clip or something of each step. So when I do it, I'm gonna try to see if I can do that.
Yeah, that's good. I always cook my rice in the pressure cooker just because it's super fast and like crazy easy. Like my old school pressure cooker that you can make a bomb in. It's just rice and water and I spray it with Pam spray too so it doesn't stick to the sides. And then like you put it on high for 4 minutes and boom, like it's so good. I do let it natural release for I think like 10, so it takes like probably 20 minutes altogether, but I don't have to do anything with it. Like I just turn on the heat and then turn off the heat. That's it. I don't have to stir it or do anything, and it turns out perfectly.
When we were out there for the West Coast event, we stayed with Amy. She made it in her Instapot, and I haven't had the nerve to try it. Well, one, because I just like Sadie B's so much better, so I just take the time and I just do it in bulk. But she made it, and I was surprised at how. I mean, it was just rice, but I was surprised at how good the texture was, and it wasn't like weird because it was in a pressure cooker. So that was good to see. So
yeah, that's how I did it for the burrito bowls for the event too.
Yeah, I saw that too. It was yummy.
Good. Who else? What are your go-to carbs for your Fitme plates?
I do roasted potatoes and roasted sweet potatoes at the same time. And then I do Sandy B's rice as well. And I'll freeze some of it and I'll keep some in the fridge. And then lately I have been substituting the potatoes for oats in the morning, and just to kind of switch a little bit. I'm supposed to be adding some carbs in. And so I tried that and I really like it in the colder months, but I don't like to eat oats when it's hot outside. So it's out right now. But I like having just roasted potatoes or roasted sweet potatoes with breakfast. And I'll just put them in the fridge.
Yeah, I never get sick of them.
Keep them in the fridge. Yeah.
I liked when you posted your Fitme plate this morning that was like maple and pecan oatmeal. Is that what it was?
Yeah, I made and they're the instant packets of oats, but it's like a plain one. It's not sweetened or anything. And I added a little bit of almond milk, and then I put a little drizzle of maple syrup and some pecans. And it was good. I like the pecans because it makes it crunchy.
Or
that
sounded really good to me.
Honey, like just a little drizzle just to sweeten it so that I don't have to use any sweeteners or sugar.
Yeah.
A little bit of butter.
I want to do that.
Butter in it. Yeah.
Not
too much.
I hadn't thought about putting butter in oats. You know what else?
That way. He loves it that way. So I tried it and it's actually really good.
Yeah, I bet it would be delicious. He was talking, I think it was Jen Lyons talks about doing savory oats. And report back. Just to have something different. But I really like my savory breakfast. I haven't had
I think you're a robot. Or am I a robot?
I'm a robot. No.
Is it me?
No, it's Lauren.
No, it's me.
No, it's Lauren.
It's me. Damn. Hang on. Is that better?
Yeah.
Is that better? Okay. Yeah. So I try to eat sweet or savory things for breakfast to get my palate set correctly, but I'm a little afraid of sweet breakfast now because it works so good for me to eat savory breakfast.
Yeah.
But I miss my baked oatmeal. I'm gonna have that, I think, because like you said, now that it's cold, it feels like it's like a warm, cozy bowl of deliciousness.
And I've never tried oatmeal like that.
You've never tried oatmeal?
No, it just looks gross. I'm one of those people. It's like,
are you like a texture person?
Yeah, because everyone's like,
yeah.
Do you like it? No. Have you tried it? No.
You should try it.
So
baked oatmeal.
I have a really good baked oatmeal recipe I'll send to you.
Okay.
And you can try it. It's you bake it with egg whites and almond milk and fruit. And it comes out like it's really thick. It's like a block. And then you can kind of break it into chunks and add a little bit of milk to it when you warm it up. It's very tasty.
See, I love oatmeal raisin cookies are like my favorite cookie, but I've never actually tried like oatmeal, like what you would eat for like breakfast.
Yeah, it might be like it's not like sticky like porridge. It's like it's not cake. It's not quite cake. But it's not oatmeal. It's different.
Okay.
I'll send it to you and you could try that.
I'll have to try it. Yeah.
And if you hate it, you can just throw it away. It won't hurt my feelings.
My husband likes oatmeal, but he gets like the prepackaged, like brown sugar, cinnamon, oatmeal stuff. So I've never.
Yeah.
It just does not look appetizing. So I don't know. Just can't do it. Haven't been able to pull the trigger on it, I guess I should say.
I like plain oatmeal that I can season myself because then I know what's in it. Even if I add a little bit of brown sugar, it's not going to be as much as what they put in the store. And it always tastes better. And it's not that hard to just add like a scoop of this, a scoop of that, and then sprinkle some seasoning and put it in the microwave.
Yeah, I'm gung-ho on my eggs and my rice for breakfast. That's my carbs. My carbs are the rice, the brown rice and quinoa. And then every once in a while I'll have a baked potato because I don't like sweet potatoes. But those are my carbs. So I'm addicted to this rice. So it's very delicious. Okay. I have it with like every meal if I can.
Okay. Yeah. So. That's good. Find what works for you.
Yeah. And it's easy because, it comes in a package. I just break it in half because it's 2 cups. So just have 1 cup each. And then, so I take them to work. I pack my breakfast for work every week. So I'm at the office 3 days a week. So I take a carton of eggs and my rice and cut up vegetables and leave it at the work refrigerator. So that way I have breakfast every morning.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Christy. For you guys that want to try the pineapple quinoa, it's in the chat. Christy just shared the link.
You're welcome.
So click on that and save it.
I'll hop on the Facebook. Yeah, I'll hop on the Facebook group and share it too, just from a conversation from tonight's call.
Okay. I just opened it so it doesn't disappear on me. Tika, what are your favorite carbs?
Fruit. So when I get tired of the potatoes and the rice, because it's generally potatoes and rice, white potatoes, sweet potatoes, rice, any flavor. But I get tired of them. They kind of feel heavy after a while, and I just go to fruit. As my carb.
It also is a really good carb, like root vegetables, like beets and turnips, and they're a lot less carby carbs.
No,
I should have known that. I appreciate that. But they're like fruit. Like you can eat a lot more of them for the same carb serving that you can, like potatoes and rice and stuff, because they're not as starchy. But I specifically remember this one time when we were talking about beets, and somebody was like, no, beets aren't a carb, they're a superfood. And that is exactly what, like, when we were talking about like what we think about when we hear the word carb, that it has almost this like negative connotation with it, like it's somehow unhealthy or somehow not good for us. It's just what it is. It's just a carbohydrate. A carbohydrate is just a source of energy. It is just a macronutrient. And we've created this identifier in our brains for what a carb is, and that a carb can't be a good thing somehow. And so, because it was like, are beets a carb or are they a vegetable? That was the conversation. And they are more carb heavy than other vegetables, just like potatoes are more carb heavy than other vegetables. It's still technically a vegetable, but it is a carb when we're talking about like our Fitme plates and those kind of things. And a carb can also be a superfood. Pomegranates are a superfood. We still consider them a carb, right? And so it's not one or the other. It can be both. It can, like, because carbs they are good for us. Our bodies were made to process them. And so they grow in the ground. They were alive. we can have it. And so I think that that's something too to think about, is like they can still be superfoods. They still are very nutrient dense. They are still really good for us. I mean, like, I don't know a lot about history, so I might like totally F this up, but like the Irish potato famine, like that was something that like that people were using potatoes so much that like their whole lives were disrupted when they couldn't eat potatoes because they're so nutrient dense, and like the skin is really good for us and they have tons of minerals, and like they were living their lives off of potatoes almost. And then when the potato crop, like I could be really butchering this, somebody's going to come back to me and like murder me in my sleep because I totally screwed up the history of the Irish potato famine. They'll tell my husband that I just tried to say history things. But potatoes are good. Like they have like the skin that is around the potato is good. The inside of the potato is good. Like fruits and vegetables, and they all have really important nutrition. They don't just have a carb. Like they aren't just like this one little thing. They have all of this stuff, all of these vitamins and nutrients in them too. And so anyway. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Does anybody have anything else that they want to add about carbs, or any questions you have about carbs? Or
question about squash. So
yeah,
because I never know which one is for my Fitme plate, which one is a vegetable, which one is a carb. Is it summer is vegetable and winter is carb? Okay.
Yes. And if you're listening and if you're
This
having a
squash thing
trouble,
is disrespectful. Why the hell would one be a vegetable and one be a carb? I'm so sick of squash.
It's just because of the makeup of them. And so the winter squashes are a lot starchier. They're heavier than the summer squashes. And so for me, if I'm having a hard time identifying if this is a winter squash or a summer squash, it's the easiest way that I have found to identify it in my brain is if I can cut it easily, it's a summer squash.
Okay.
Because like yellow squash and zucchini, they're summer squashes and they're really easy to cut. But like I have to use some serious muscle to cut through butternut squash or spaghetti squash, or all those like what are the acorn squash, those heavier pumpkins. Those heavier squashes are difficult to cut. And so yeah.
Okay.
But good question. I love butternut squash. I like that. You're gonna what?
I'm gonna try some of the winter ones, and so I kind of wanted to know if I'm counting it as my carb or as my vegetable.
Yeah. But again, it's kind of like fruit. Like you can eat more of it. It's not as starchy as like potatoes and things like that. But they are on this, like they're more carb heavy. And that's another thing. Like if you look up nutrition for different things, if you're like, I don't know if this is a whatever, if this is a carb or a fat or a protein, or it has all the things. A lot of food has all three of those things in it. And so sometimes it's hard and confusing. I just kind of look at like which of those three numbers is higher. And that's what that falls into. That's how I kind of identify it in my brain if I'm having a hard time. But all that said, we're still eating good, clean, whole foods. And it would be really hard to overeat butternut squash. So I think sometimes we get tied up in like the rules and like trying to be like as perfect as possible. But at the end of the day, like it is still a vegetable. It is still something that's got really quality nutrition. And you're not going to eat like a giant cereal bowl full of butternut squash because you would be so full. It would just be ridiculous. And so yeah, I think it's kind of a similar discussion about like protein, like what's too much protein. It would be really hard to overeat protein. Things like that are really nutrient dense, the stuff that we're eating. it is except for fat. Fat's really easy to overeat because it's delicious. But yeah, if we're also incorporating like the whole balance of a Fitme plate, it would be difficult to overeat it. And it would be hard to eat a half a plate's worth of a heavy squash just because it would fill us up a lot.
Okay.
But
Thank
yeah,
you.
good question. I love adding butternut squash to my chili. I know that's a weird thing, but I love to like load my chili with vegetables and like spinach and peppers and onions and tomatoes and butternut squash and kale even. Like
You
throw
had
it in
me
there like
until the kale and the spinach in a chili.
I've thrown so many
it's a
bags.
good place to hide it.
I buy it, go straight in the trash every week in the trash.
I don't buy it super regularly, but it's something like if it's chopped up in like a chopped salad, I like it. I don't like to mess with it too much, but I also try to eat it more than I used to because it has a lot of nutrients in it. It's really, really good for you. It's very good for your gut. I like to blend it. But I also like it chopped up really small. I love kale chips, but I don't have the patience to make them. But the reason that I try to incorporate it more is because I have this mental block about kale in a similar way that I used to have about salad, where it's like, I'm healthy, but let's not go crazy. I don't eat kale. Like, and so I just had this like image in my mind about these women that ate kale. And it was like this really unfair thing. But I'm like, F you and your kale, like you can go to hell. And like I still fight that mental barrier, honestly. And so sometimes I challenge myself to do things because I know that it's just that mental barrier more than anything else. Like oatmeal for you, Julie.
Marlena, how are you cooking your squash? I have a green squash as my vegetable for the week that I'm gonna try.
Well, I only eat zucchini and summer squash. I have not tried any of the other squash, and I just saute them. But I did buy a butternut squash, and it's still sitting on my countertop. I'm gonna roast it and cut it the way Coach Leah showed us, but I don't really know how to eat it. Like, do I just eat it like that? Like, I don't know. Because when I eat zucchini and summer squash, I saute it with spices or whatever, and I just eat it with the fork. But I don't know I don't know what to do with it once it's roasted. What do? Squish it up and eat it like mash?
Once
Or
it's roasted, I would eat it the same way you would eat like a roasted sweet potato. So if you want to mash it, you could mash it. If you want to like cube it up, you could cube it up. Um, just roast it whole, like in the rings or whatever, and then cut the skin off. Like it'll come right out off of this outer skin. Once it's roasted, and you could cut it and just eat bites of it, or you can mash it. It's either way. It has a very similar texture to a sweet potato. A butternut squash does.
You can also like shred it like pasta, like with a
That's
fork.
just the spaghetti squash. Or I guess you could
Oh,
like
what
you
is that?
can
You said
zoodle it or whatever,
butternut.
but
Never mind.
yeah,
Yeah,
spaghetti squash
sorry,
shreds.
I got it mixed up.
I think it'd be hard to make zoodles out of heavy squashes.
Yeah, I was getting it mixed up. Natika, the one thing that I would recommend when you're cooking like zucchini or summer squash is don't salt it until you're ready to like eat it. Because the salt's gonna bring like moisture, make it soggy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really important.
Thanks for the
That's
tip.
for like all veggies.
Yeah.
Like until you're cooking it, it dry.
and you guys were just talking about kale, and then we're talking about squash, and going back to what the West Coast event, Amy made this. I don't know what the actual name of it is. I'm just gonna call it a kale squash bean soup or whatever. And I was just like, what? Like I was just like, that doesn't sound good to me, but it was actually really delicious. It was like white beans. It had I think zucchini and squash in it. It had some kale. You didn't even know it was kale. You just were eating like it was really good. And we added like some, I don't know if it was ground beef or ground turkey. I can't remember, but we added that to it when we went to go eat it. And it was, I think it was the day we did the hike. So it was really good coming back from, being cold or whatever. And I actually came home and I bought all the ingredients except for kale because I want to get that. But so I have all the ingredients on hand to make it one day. So I think it's just figuring out like the way that the texture between like that kind of stuff is like just finding a way that you'll enjoy it. It took me a long time to eat squash.
Yeah. It can be weird. It's trial and error for sure.
I haven't found a love for it yet.
I like to cut it into bigger chunks because it gets so mushy when you cut it like in slices that are thinner. So I like to like chunk mine kind of like they do at the hibachi place where they cut it in like long quarters and then like bite-sized chunks. That's how I like to do my squash and zucchini. And let me see your faces, my lovelies. I'll take a picture. Dun, 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 dun. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3, cheese.
Cheese.
All right, loves. Anybody needs to talk about before we wrap up? Nope. All righty. Have an awesome rest of your week, and I will talk to you next week. If you guys have any like things you want to talk about food related, if you have like, I'm always looking for ideas. So if you've got any questions about anything, if you're curious about anything, if anything comes up that you're like, oh, hey, what about this? Just shoot me a message because I'd love to hear it and have some inspiration because sometimes I come up kind of dry on these.
Okay.
All right,
Good
ladies.
night.
Have an awesome rest of your week. I'll talk to you soon.
Hi.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.